Hello and welcome to 90 Years Strong, the Monroe College Story, where we dive into the rich tapestry of the Monroe College legacy. Join us as we uncover the inspiring journeys, remarkable achievements, and transformative experiences of students, faculty, and alumni across the decades. From the challenges faced to the triumphs celebrated, each episode will paint a vivid picture of resilience, growth, and the unwavering spirit that has made Monroe College an educational powerhouse. This podcast embodies the spirit of being 90 years strong in academic excellence. So get ready to be inspired, educated, and motivated. Welcome to this episode of 90 Years Strong, the Monroe College Story. This episode is titled A New Identity, Fostering Excellence in Academics and Athletics at Monroe College. I'm your host for this episode, David Spiegel. I am the Assistant Athletic Director for Athletic Communications in Monroe College in New Rochelle. And with me today are Sandy Rodriguez, our Assistant Athletic Director for Compliance and Senior Women Administrator, and Assistant Vice President of Athletics at Monroe College, Lou Melendez. Welcome, Sandy and Lou.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. Good morning.
So today's episode is about athletics at Monroe College and how athletics have been part of the history at Monroe since back in 1989 with our first varsity team, the men's basketball program. And we're going to go into all the details about how athletics started at Monroe College, the history of a lot of our programs, some of our notable alumni, starting a second athletic program in the Bronx, and many more details about Monroe. So starting with you, Sandy, can you tell us about when you got to Monroe and the different roles that you've played in your time at Monroe College?
When I first arrived at Monroe College, I was a student straight out of Lehman College, 1994. I decided to volunteer for Monroe College. They were starting a passion for athletics. And of course, that was always my passion in addition to finance and accounting. But I found a second home at Monroe College, which I volunteered for 5 years. In 1998, I was officially full-time staff, but in the finance department. Back then, the college was transitioning into many different sports and forming many different athletic sports. Therefore, I volunteer myself. I share my time, volunteer, did assistant coaches, help with the women's volleyball team, softball team, men and women's basketball, travel with them around the country, learn how to do the stats and so forth. And that was my passion for athletics. Fast forward to 2016, I finally joined the athletics department full-time as a senior women administrator and compliance officer, assistant director for Mr. Lou Melendez.
And that leads us into Lou. Lou, you've been here since 2005 at the start of the baseball program. So can you tell us how you got to Monroe and how it led to where you are now?
I'm very fortunate to be in the position today. When I was a volunteer coach at Lehman College, when we heard from the former SID here at Monroe College, Gary Axelbank, that Monroe College was interested in starting a baseball program. Kiko Reyes was the head coach at Lehman, whom I was volunteering for, and I told him about it. Say, hey, this is going on at Monroe. Let's write a proposal and let's see if we're able to land that job. I always felt that junior college athletics was something that I had a passion for, being that I was a junior college baseball athlete myself. Sure enough, in 2005, we came in with the proposal. They interviewed Kiko, they interviewed me, and they offered us the job. Shortly thereafter, Fordham College offers Kiko Reyes the hitting coach job. And the next year, he took the job, and I stayed on as the head coach. At the time, I was a part-time coach. I was a short officer for the Department of Education. And 2 years later, Mark Jerome offered me the opportunity to come on full-time at Monroe College. And I was working in the Res Life department as well as coaching the baseball team. Fast forward to 2013, I was appointed Assistant Athletic Director. And shortly thereafter, in 2016, Athletic Director. And now here I am, Assistant Vice President for Athletics and providing oversight over both campuses in the athletic department.
And of course, as I mentioned before, I am David Spiegel, the Assistant AD for Athletic Communications. I've been at Monroe College since the summer of 2017 and got here just in time to help us build our second department over in the Bronx as well, that we will touch on a bit later, and have been around Monroe for a lot of historical events in the last 6-7 years, and we will get into a lot of those shortly. But we want to begin today with the beginning of athletics. 1989 was the first men's basketball team at Monroe College, which led into Monroe joining the NJCAA and the introduction of many more sports to Monroe. But Sandy, as our resident historian and the one we go to for all the history of Monroe College, can you touch a bit on that first program and what it led to in the early years at Monroe?
Sure, David. Back in 1989, we were trying to just formalize a group of kids that we were going to have the opportunity to provide excellent education, morals, values, and try to lead the community and set an example for the community. We were trying to be mentors to this group of kids. We formalized the men's basketball team. Our first games we used to play at West Farms. From there on, we transitioned to Lehman College, which then it were leading us into the recruiting. And some of us were able to recruit and attract more of that product to Monroe College and make it more attractive. 3 years later, decided to form women's basketball. And it was, again, kids around the community coming over, deciding to play for us and deciding to participate and partake, leading us to a larger group of interest day after day.
Yeah, and I believe our first years as varsity programs for the men's basketball team, they joined the NJCAA ahead of the 91-92 season. And women's basketball joined as well in 1998, and that started leading to a lot more programs starting at Monroe College. Men's soccer was the first outdoor sport to be introduced back in 1999. Eventually, with all the other teams that jumped up to Division I, men's soccer team did that back in 2010. Shortly after, we added softball and baseball in the mid-2000s. Of course, Lou mentioned 2005 being that first year that the program developed for baseball. And right after that, we had cross-country and track and field. Our current cross-country and track and field head coach, Siobhan Green, was part of the early years of that program, was instrumental in adding track and field along with cross-country, and has been with the program since then. Women's soccer shortly after in the late 2000s, and women's volleyball right there with it. And then in 2012, it was a big year for Monroe, adding football. We had a few years of men's and women's rugby in the later 20-teens. And just this past year, we had our first season of men's volleyball as well. And of course, along the road there, the marching band has been around as well and has been more closely affiliated with the athletic department in the last number of years. So, Sandy, you mentioned this before, that the programs started first competing down in the Bronx. You mentioned West Farms, moving over to Lehman College. Mount St. Michael Academy was also a big home for our basketball programs. So what was it like back then, just first starting off in the Bronx? And then Lou, you could touch on this as well, because that was a big transition up to New Rochelle early in the 2010s when we first got our first arena and moved our athletic programs to City Park up here as well.
I can speak to the latter half of that question. It was my third year, 2008, when we started hearing conversations about the potential of moving up to New Rochelle. Our athletic programs began drawing attraction from out-of-state athletes and athletes that reside in the Caribbean. We had a very strong Caribbean population in New Rochelle, with students attending Monroe from the USVI, Jamaica, and other islands, Puerto Rico. And we decided to expand our opportunities by offering student athletes from these islands the opportunity to come and study and participate in intercollegiate athletics. It finally happened in 2010 when we made the transition. I remember the days of our indoor sports, in particular basketball, running operations out of Mount St. Michael Academy. And there were logistical challenges. They were great hosts, but having to bus the fans over to Mount St. Michael, then back to King Hall in the Bronx, that was always a challenge. We made it happen, so we always drew very good crowds. But it became time to have access to our own facilities. And our administration, somehow, I wasn't really involved, but they were able to acquire the former ice rink in New Rock City. At that time, coincidentally, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee was hosting an NCAA tournament. The NCAA donated a floor to them, and we were able to purchase a used basketball floor from University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And I remember the first year in the MAC, the Monroe Athletic Complex, we actually played our games with their logos still on the court. But it was a great acquisition, and it's been our home since.
And of course, since then, we've obviously renovated the Monroe Athletic Complex, resurfaced that floor a couple times. When I first got to Monroe, we were using an older logo on the center court. In the last couple of years, we've repainted the court, resurfaced it. Now we've got our brand new logo on there. We're still working on upgrading the arena as well. We've got it painted in the last year. It's got all of our colors all around. Of course, for many years, it still looked like New Rock City's ice rink with some ice skaters and hockey players and American-Canadian flags on the wall. So I'm sure a lot of our listeners will remember that from their years at Monroe College. So obviously, the relocation to New Rochelle was a big deal for us, and it definitely expanded the international enrollment for Monroe, and especially for athletics. Nowadays, we have student athletes coming from all across the world, Asia, Europe, Africa, all the islands, South America, North America, all across the world, as I said. So what did the influx of international students do to the competitive level for Monroe College athletics? Lou and Sandy, you can both touch on this, I believe.
I mean, I guess I'll start because I was part of the coaching staff during that time. And I had played in the independent circuit in Quebec City. And I remember having my former teammates had baseball academies, and there were high school coaches up in Canada. And I remember vividly the meeting with our administration where I proposed, hey, if we move to Division I, we can expand our recruiting markets, but also contribute to the diversity of the campus and have our student body reflect a more world representative demographic rather than just New York City kids and Caribbean kids. And I thought that it would be a great help and personal growth for our student body to interact with different cultures and kids from different geographical areas in the world. At the same time, as you touched on it, there's no question that most of our international athletes just come with a very high level of play, high caliber athletes, and they're big contributors to our teams. We've been able to expand on that year to year by offering competitive opportunities, but at the same time, having strong academic outcomes. As a junior college program, our athletes play their first 2 years through their associate's degree, and most move on to NCAA schools. And what we do is offer the academic support. The institution does a great job with that. We assist with the mentoring and helping them mature in the process so that they are ready for an NCAA level opportunity. And more importantly, we get to compete at the national level here in New Rochelle. So it's been quite a journey, and we've come pretty far with that.
Absolutely. And Sandy, I'm going to lead you into this next one because you've been around a long time at Monroe and you've done a lot of traveling with a lot of our successful teams. And you've seen how the teams have all grown, each program, from just teams that played locally to teams that have hit the national stage. So Sandy, what was it like the first time some of our teams went out to places like Hutchinson, Kansas, which is a traditional host for the men's basketball championships, women's volleyball as well? What did it look like when we were first getting out there and first putting the Monroe College name on the map at the junior college level?
So when we first got to Kansas, our very first year, 2003, it was only a few of us on that bus and the athletes. No one knew about Monroe College. It's like, where is this college? New York. Where is New York? Everybody had the question, how do you get here? You flew here. You took a bus here. What brings you here? Of course, our athletes were able to stamp their name, including Ryan Williams, who played for the 2003 very first team that went to nationals. The following year, when we went back, they felt sorry for us, I think, the kids in the YMCA, and they started rooting for us. So I went ahead and recruited those kids to come and form a bond with those kids because, like we said, it's very important to be part of the community and to leave a mark in that floor. We've been lucky enough to establish a great foundation with Hutchinson, Kansas, and the community. They adopted us. They care for us. They take care of us every single time we go there. And they support us 100%. They even follow the Mustangs to this day. They follow every sport, not just the men and women's basketball. They care about the Monroe Mustangs and the Express as well.
And Sandy, you definitely played an instrumental role in this throughout the history of Monroe, but it's something we have seen as our teams travel across the country, especially Hutchinson, Kansas. We see it all the time when our teams get out there, even when our men's basketball team got back there this past season. When our women's basketball team goes down to Texas for the national tournament, they gain some fans down there. And one of the biggest ones, too, was Lou, the first time the baseball team won the East District and went to the JUCO World Series, we were probably the most popular team out there in Grand Junction, Colorado. They put us on TV. They were writing national articles that ended up in the New York Times about us. Those 2 years in a row we got out there, and we had all those local fans cheering for us. I'll go to Lou on this one. What makes Monroe College so attractive when we go traveling that fans and kids flock to us?
So I think a lot has to do with integrity, David. I think that the fact that we're pretty open about our operations and doing things right, doing things the right way, and making sure that we're diligent in every aspect of how we manage our programs, from student welfare to proper documentation to certifying eligibility to following protocol and rules. And it's just honestly trying to set an example for our athletes. Look, we have had many athletes get professional opportunities, meaning play professionally. The bulk of our athletes continue on to get a bachelor's degree, and that is the end of their athletic careers. But the most important thing is that we teach people to be good citizens, and we teach these kids how to set an example and to keep open doors. So I gave a brief example not too long ago to our women's basketball team. We have two young ladies from France on the team, and I was touching upon how we represent ourselves and how we conduct ourselves, and how you have the opportunity to open doors for younger kids from France to follow suit. And the body of work that you demonstrate here will lead to confidence in our coaching staff to continue recruiting where you came from. So they have a moral and ethical responsibility to go about their business in a professional and collegial manner. And what we try to foster and encourage and also hold to a standard to our coaches is to lead by example. I've been invited to more than 100 weddings from former athletes. And I think that's part of what we do, is just making sure that we're making a positive impact in their life.
And let me chime on something else. A lot of the students, when I go back to them after a few years go by, and I always said, why Monroe? And their answer is, that was a magical place. That's a magical place. It taught me values, as Lou stated, morals. They were able to give back to the community. Monroe supports the students, and we do a lot of work to protect the community, embrace the community, and embrace the student athletes. I always tell them, dream big and continue to dream big. Someone in that event was Orlando Sanchez, arrived to Monroe College not knowing a word of English, let's say, but I encourage him, and a lot of us supported him to go back, learn English, speak English. Within a month, Orlando was already speaking full sentences and was recruited by St. John's University, drafted by the New York Knicks. That's a success story. And not only that, you can never meet a humble person than Orlando Sanchez. And he will go back and do it again over and over. And he helps with the recruiting as well.
And of course, Orlando Sanchez is just one of many notable alumni to come out of Monroe College, specifically with that basketball team. We also had Maurice Endor just a number of years ago, who followed in Orlando Sanchez's footsteps. He ended up playing in the NBA for a little while. He's still playing professionally overseas. And the list goes on and on with Monroe College athletes. We could just name a few. Someone we've seen on the national stage from the women's soccer team, Kath Ellen Sousa, playing for the Brazilian national team. We've seen her in the World Cup. We have Oliver Semmel, who recently played for our national championship men's soccer team a few years ago. He's in the MLS. We keep seeing a lot of highlights from him. He also won a national championship with Marshall at the NCAA level. Even this past year, we had Melvin Council Jr., men's basketball, who just broke the scoring record and then some for our men's basketball team. He's now playing at Wagner College, Division I. The list can go on, Sandy. I know you have a ton of them in your head if you want to name a few. I want to mention as well is not only have we had a lot of individual success with athletes, but also some great team successes as well. We're looking at 8 total national championships from our teams, not to mention a ton of them from our track and field programs that have a lot of individual and relay championships. First national championship back when women's basketball was playing at the Division III level. They won the national titles back in 2006 and 2008. And then after moving up to Division II, won another 2 national championships back-to-back years, 2011 and 2012. Can we go back to those and just talk about how special it was for those teams making the jump up to the higher levels, and then shortly after the 2012 team won its national championship, moving up to Division I as well, and still working its way onto the national stage, getting there a number of times. But if either of you wants to speak on those first few championship teams and what it did for Monroe College.
Women's basketball 2006 was very special. We had a lot of difficulties that year with traveling. Of course, we didn't have the home athletic complex. We used to play our games at Mount St. Michael. We would go back and forth. We traveled by bus, long hours, long weekends. But that team had Fantasia Goodwin, who ended up being our leading scorer. Right now is in the Hall of Fame, NJCAA Hall of Fame. Fantasia is someone who also has a very successful career. Currently, she's coaching as well as teaching. And at the same time, she went on and was recruited by Syracuse University. Fast forward to 2008, that team was also tremendous. We had Monet Johnson. That team, we played games at Mount St. Michael, went on to, I believe it was upstate New York. Monet had a very successful career. Monet went on, studied criminal justice, and right now she's giving back to the community as a police officer.
And then, of course, those teams were great. And just to clarify, Fantasia Goodwin, the most recent member of the NJCAA Hall of Fame, being inducted in 2023. She still holds a lot of NJCAA scoring records, definitely our proud alumni. And then, like I said, we moved up to D2, once again found success with the women's basketball program, 2011 and 2012 national champions. And then a few years later, our women's soccer team did it for the first time, won the national championship in 2014. And then my second year at Monroe College, 2018, the women's soccer team won its sectional national championship, had an historically good team, some very noteworthy players, some that are playing professionally a lot, that went to Division I colleges after that. And even right after that, men's soccer team had to get there first. We've had Marcus DiBernardo, our head coach here, for a very long time with the men's soccer team. Had a few close opportunities in the years prior to that, but 2019, it all came together. That team went undefeated, was easily the most dominant team in the country that year. And then this past season as well looked to be a very similar team, ran into a little bit of a speed bump, losing the district championship game to Montgomery College, dropped us down in the rankings, came in as a number 3 seed last year, and then made that run through the national tournament, winning the national championship for the second time, and hopefully looking to do so again this year, so far undefeated. So we've had a lot of success at Monroe College. And Lou, you've, as a coach at Monroe as well, you built that baseball team into a national contender as well before stepping back out of that role. As a coach here at Monroe, when you started seeing a lot of other teams find the success, get to the national level, be well known around the country, for a team like yours, the baseball program, what did it do to motivate your program to kind of get there as well?
I think that motivation is always present, especially as a Monroe College Mustang team, just because of the rich history of winning. There are some different challenges that teams face based on geographical location. As a Northeast baseball team, it's always been a tall task to reach that goal, to get to the national tournament. However, I think that the hard work and perseverance of those players, and I have to give credit to the assistant coaches during that time, we went above and beyond to just push and build and sustain confidence in being able to achieve the unachievable, being able to get through what was an unwritten or undocumented obstacle, if I may. It had been quite some time before a New York team had visited the Junior College World Series when we made it in 2018. But to answer your question, that confidence and the motivation is always there. In a sport like baseball, there are so many things that have to happen and fall in the right place. And for us, fortunately, that year we just played really good ball at the right time. We were not the most talented team that Monroe College has ever had, but at that time, we just played really well. We had good chemistry. Guys trusted one another, and they were executing with their responsibilities. But I feel the same for all our sports. We have been to 3 bowl games in the last few years with our football program, and they've done a really good job of building a culture and setting a standard that resonates with the next level. And what we do take pride in is how many of our kids move on from here and go on to 4-year schools. And yes, it's great that we went to the World Series, but you know what? I had 7 kids get full scholarships out of that visit. And that was more rewarding than the potential to win a national championship. Of course, we want to win it, but what is it that we're doing for these kids, and what type of exposure are we providing for them to gain opportunities while playing their respective sport?
And I know that we have the community behind us. The colleges is also so supported. And like I always tell the kids, our program is non-negotiable. We are so committed to diversity, equity, and engagement. And that's why it makes our students so special in the community. And to see those kids come from high school and then move on and become professionals and become role models is very rewarding.
And I think that actually leads into the next topic I want to talk about, which is that we've been very successful at the academic level as well when it comes to athletics. Even just this past year, we set a record for how many student athletes were named to the NJCAA All-Academic Team. And we've had some standout individual athletes as well in terms of academics. Most recently, we had Aaliyah Moore of the track and field and cross country team. She was named the COSIDA Academic All-America Team Member of the Year, which is arguably the highest academic accomplishment a student athlete can achieve. She also was a NATICA Scholar Athlete of the Year as well, so just representing two-year colleges. And then 2 years before, her countrymate from Guyana, Joanna Archer, did exactly the same thing. She was also COSIDA Academic Team Member of the Year. It's just something I know we pride ourselves on. So Sandy, as our compliance officer who deals with eligibility and of course academics being a very big role in that, what are some things you attribute to the academic success of our student athletes?
The support system that we have in place. We are a small college, and I always tell the kids, we know everything about every single one of you. We have the luxury to get daily reports, to check their attendance, to send them to student services, to work with our peers, to work on the class schedule, to have the opportunity to work one-on-one with the students.
And I agree. In my role with athletic communications, I'm the one who gets to promote all the achievements of Monroe College. And one of my proudest ones every single year is getting all these academic awards, whether it's the individuals, whether it's the academic teams of the year that we've been consistently pulling in from the NJCAA every single year. Even last year, our brand new men's volleyball program winning the first ever NJCAA Academic Team of the Year award just goes to show right away with that program what kind of athletes we're recruiting, the support system the coaches and the administration is giving them. And I think it's one of the great things that we do at Monroe College. So now the next thing I want to go into here is that back in 2017, we began a second athletic program in the Monroe College Express, housed in the Bronx, the original home of Monroe College athletics. So Lou, as one of the people that came up with the idea to do such a thing, helped develop that program, helped come up with the idea, I first want to ask, what was the idea behind starting a second athletic program? And logistically, how did we think we could make that work?
So the initial thought came about 2014. At the time, I was the baseball coach and assistant athletic director for enrollment and retention. And what I was looking for was new avenues to create opportunities and generate enrollment for the college in the athletic department. We started hitting saturation points with our rosters, and we just had no room, honestly. We were getting to baseball at 80 kids interested in the program, soccer at 80 kids. Football immediately was 100 plus. And what I decided to put forth in 2016 is that I went and did the research, and I found out what would it take to register the Bronx campus as its own entity within the NJCAA. And gathered the information, made the proposal, and the objective was, David, to be able to provide more opportunities for local Bronxites to participate in intercollegiate athletics. And I said, it's a shame to have these kids walk away. Let's register the Bronx campus as a Division III campus that provides local competition, what we used to be back in the early 2000s. And let's recreate that back in the Bronx as a separate entity within the NJCAA. So at the time, we had Alaire Premiano was in charge of our athletic admissions here in New Rochelle. And we assigned her to the task of becoming the athletic director in the Bronx. And here we are in our 6th year of existence, and they've had plenty of success. We've had great stories with local student athletes graduating and already coming back to say thank you. We have tons of police officers. We have some teachers and accountants. And that's what it's about. It's about using sports and your respective athletic program as the avenue to create options for life. regardless of the division, regardless of the campus. The Monroe way is use the sport as the avenue to not only foster, but to continue to develop your academic values, your academic skill sets to prepare you for a career job.
Before we go into the recent successes of the Express, I'd just like to know, and I think it's important for our audience here as well, what went into deciding on the Express as the mascot name for the new campus athletic department?
Okay, so that was an ongoing battle for me. I can honestly say that the Express name was the name that I wanted and chose because of logistical and geographical location. The Bronx campus, King Hall, is located right under the L train, the 4 train. The bulk of our student body takes the subway train to the campus. And I said, hey, the Express, let's go. I know many administrators wanted to stay within the equestrian family, if I could say, and they were looking for Stampede, Broncos, but there are many other colleges in this area, in these geographical areas with those types of mascots, whether it's the Mavericks, Broncos. I believe Orange also has a horse.
The Colts, yeah.
Colts. So I said, let's just make it relevant to the campus. Let's make it relevant to our student body, to our demographic, and to our community. Let's have our logo, our mascot, be a train, an express train. And at the same time, it's unisex. It was unisex in nature, so you wouldn't need to vary the name based on the gender of the sport. I liked it a lot, and I stood my ground with that. I'm glad I won that.
I think we've definitely established that identity and expanded upon it in the last 6 or 7 years. We've added to the media guide there that we have now new logos that also embrace the Bronx and New York City. As we do expand that athletic department, it started off with a lot of student athletes from the Bronx, and now it's covering all 5 boroughs. We have athletes coming from Westchester. We even have some athletes from across the country and even across the world now coming to play for the Express. So it really has developed in the last number of years, including a lot of successes in the last few years as well. We've had the women's basketball team go to the national tournament the last couple of years, be a nationally ranked program. The men's basketball team a couple of years ago did the exact same thing, won its district, made it to the national tournament. The baseball team as well made a really fun run through the Region 15 championship and got to districts a couple of years ago. The softball team, even better, got to the national championship tournament, got to go up to Syracuse, play in the Junior College World Series for softball, had a really good showing up there. And the programs just continue to succeed. Even in the year after COVID, the men's soccer team was actually the first team to reach the national tournament for that program, getting up there, having another good showing up in Syracuse, in that area at least. So we've really built that program. Obviously, we want to give a lot of credit to Larry Primiano, the athletic director there, for developing the programs, finding good coaches, helping recruit, and build the program into what it is today. I think we're in a really good place at Monroe College. We are nationally known, not only at the junior college level, but across intercollegiate athletics. We do very well on my side of things. We do very well on social media these days. It's grown a lot in the last few years. We get a lot of engagement. Our website is one of the most highly trafficked websites at the NJCAA level. I do have the analytics to back that up. And we're in a really good place. Sandy, I want to start with you here. What are some of the things that you've seen over the last couple of years at Monroe College that really put us on the map as one of the better programs in the country?
We change life. We are different from everyone else. We're very special. We're unique. We're honest. We believe in what we do. We believe in the product. And we do a great job. We don't go to work every day. I get to go to my playground as well to change lives and help the student athletes.
And Lou, the same question to you. What would you say is the current state of Monroe College athletics?
Well, I believe that we are in a very solid place. I believe that part of our national recognition is not just what we do between the lines and the athletic success, but also, we can't fail to mention the quality of the coaches. And that is my job, personnel procurement. And I pride myself in trying to acquire the best individuals for the respective sport. Of course, there's not a cookie cutter requirement list. Every sport is different. And what we look for is how can this individual develop these young people in the best way possible, in the most productive way and efficient way possible through their respective sport. And we've done a good job at identifying individuals that really understand our culture, our values, and also our administration and the support for athletics, especially within the junior college ranks, to me is second to none. I mean, our president was an athlete. The chairman of our board was an athlete. So many of our administrators understand what being a student athlete is about and what it takes to be successful. So it's really refreshing to have that type of support and understanding from upper administration. And the fact is that Monroe College is just a family-oriented place. And everyone's here is on a first-name basis. And all the administrators know the athletes. And those of us in the athletic department go above and beyond to make sure that we're serving a really good product, but at the same time, holding the kids to a very high standard. And I think that combination there puts us in a category with the other really successful JUCO athletic departments in the country. And there's plenty of them. And we're so glad and we're proud to stand beside those other programs.
Our athletic trainers, they support our students as well as we do. They serve a large volume of students, student athletes. So kudos to them as well. We do have a state-of-the-art athletic trainers department. It's beautiful, and we get to take care of those student athletes.
And we absolutely do. Recently renovated athletic training room, obviously keeping up with technology over the years as well. So I do think that is another advantage that we have at Monroe College, that we have made sure to put in an effort into rest, recovery, and treatment for all of our athletes. And of course, affiliation with doctors in the area as well to keep our athletes healthy. Of course, in all the successes I mentioned for the Monroe Express before, I also forgot to mention that the women's volleyball team last year was also a national tournament contender. So as you can see, with so much success, it's hard to remember each one of them off the top of your head. Lou, I want to go to you on this one as we reach the end of this. As the man in charge of overseeing both athletic departments, what are the plans that you hope to develop for both these programs over the next few years?
Well, David, there's no question that we still have some facility improvements that I like to see over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. We're only going to continue to grow and become more competitive. But my biggest want and my biggest wish is to, over the course of 3 years, next 3 years, is to develop a proper Hall of Fame and a proper space to highlight all of those successes. I have trophies behind me that I have nowhere to put, so they stay in my office. That's something that I really would like to find a place for, develop, bring back the alumni, hold proper Hall of Fame ceremonies, and develop criteria for the Hall of Fame for sport. And that is one of the things that, as my time comes to an end sometime here, I would love to see happen.
That's great. And something that I know we're all definitely looking forward to over the next few years, and being a part, playing our role in the success and development of Monroe College athletics. And I think a lot of what Monroe College is doing is all about opportunity, as you said. It's all about developing young athletes into adults, getting them to where they need to be to succeed in their athletic and academic careers. So we've covered the start to the current for Monroe College athletics. We told a lot of good stories today, a lot of the history of Monroe College. There's plenty more that we could find out. For those listening, if you want to find out more about Monroe College athletics, you can visit us at monroecollegemustangs.com. For the Monroe Express, that's monroeexpress.com. You'll also be able to find our social media pages out there. This has been 90 Years Strong, the Monroe College Story, all about athletics today. On behalf of Sandy Rodriguez and Lou Melendez, I am David Spiegel. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through 90 Years Strong, the Monroe College Story. We hope you've been inspired by the stories shared and the impact of Monroe College. Stay tuned for more captivating episodes hosted by Anne-Marie Ferguson. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. And don't forget to visit our website for more resources and opportunities to connect with fellow alumni. Until next time.